Hi, this is Gary, Aldan American. Today we're going to talk about this 69 Camaro. So it already came in, it has coilovers on the back, it has a coilover setup on the front. The problem is that the lengths are wrong, the spring rates are wrong on the rear. On the front, it was installed wrong, it has a lot of issues. We're going to show you how we're going to correct all the problems with the 69 Camaro. This is the kit we're going to install on our 69 Camaro. So I've laid out the single and the double adjustable shocks so you can see the difference. Also, this car has a triangulated 4-link rear suspension in it, so we're using a true coilover shock in the rear instead of a smooth body shock that we would use on a leaf spring car. We're going to use a true coilover shock in the rear because the car already has a 4-link suspension. So this coilover shock replaces the leaf spring in this particular car. And we have a 550 and a 450 spring available. So your typical small block car or a lightweight LS would use the 450 spring. This kit is available as a small block with 450 or the 550 big block spring. Now this has a lightweight LS with an aluminum block in it, so we're going to use the 450 pound spring. If it was heavier like a big block or even an iron block LS, we would use the 550 pound spring. This is our double adjustable. So this knob on the top is a rebound adjuster and this is a compression adjuster on the bottom. So our single adjustable kit will include the knob on the bottom for adjusting compression, but it's not going to have a rebound knob on the top for adjusting the rebound. We also have laid out our spanner wrench, our thrust bearings, the hardware to be used with the front shock installation, and our reinforcing plates. So we're going to take the upper and the lower bolts loose. I have the rear axle supported by this transmission jack so that the rear end doesn't just fall on the ground. So follow along and see how we do it. So we removed the shocks that were on this car when they came in. They were a set of the very inexpensive, online, the cheapest coilover shock you can buy. We're putting a set of high quality, made in America, Aldan American shocks on the car. So on the bottom, we're using our 5/8 sleeves. On the top, we're actually going to use our bearings. The width between the tabs is 1.25 inches. So we have to use our high misalignment spacers. And what this will do is goes inside of our bearing. And now the width is 1.25 inches, so it's going to fit right between the tabs that are already on the car. So now I've got my 1.25 inch wide misalignment spacers, so that fits between my tabs that's on the cross member. I've tightened our upper and lower bolts down. On our adjusters, this compression adjuster, I'm going to leave it number 1, which is the softest setting. And that's a good starting point until we take the car out and drive it. The upper has 11 positions of adjustment. So what I'm going to do is go full counterclockwise, which is the softest setting. I'm going to go up 3 clicks and use that as my starting point, which is a good place to go out and drive the car, see how it feels, make adjustments from there. We're now going to start on our front coilover installation. A couple things I want to show you is what was done incorrectly when this car was assembled the first time. So I'm going to take the wheel off, start taking the front end apart. One of the things I'm going to do in this is I'm going to take the front brake and spindle apart. It makes it a lot easier to work on the car and it makes it easier to show you how to do it, but you don't necessarily have to completely remove the brake and the spindle. So one of the things that I noticed when this car came in is the T-bar is mounted to the bottom side of the lower A-arm. So by mounting the bottom side of the A-arm, we're relying on these two 5/16 bolts to take all of the load from the shock, the spring, the weight of the car are all on these 2 bolts. So if these 2 bolts were to break, what would happen is the shock would come out the bottom. There's probably a very good chance that it would ruin your entire afternoon if you didn't also crash the car. The first thing I'm going to do is take my caliper off. Now that I've removed my caliper, I'm going to use this little hook I made out of some brake line material to hang the caliper. So that way we're not hanging it on the brake hose. I'm going to remove my rotor, and that's just going to make it a lot easier to work on the coilover kit. So now I'm going to remove the sway bar end link. The next thing we're going to do is take off our tie rod end. I like using this little tool so it doesn't damage the tie rod boot when we go to remove it from its tapered seat. So now I'm going to remove the spindle. So I've already popped the ball joints loose from the tapered seats. By taking the spindle assembly off, it makes it a lot easier to get in and work on the coilover kit. Now that I've taken the spindle out, I'm going to remove the shock. So I have to undo the upper mount and the lower mounts. So on our T-bar, you can see somebody used some black electrical tape to hold it in place. I'm not so sure if that was really the correct way to hold a T-bar into a lower shock mount. So on our lower T-bar mounts, we use a 3/8 bolt. The original bolt hole was for a 5/16 bolt. So I'm going to take my unibit on my drill motor, I'm going to drill it out to 3/8 of an inch to fit my 3/8 bolt. We're going to install our double adjustable shock. So it has a compression knob on the bottom, a rebound knob on the top. So the compression knob has 6 positions and will turn 360 degrees. So in this case, we're going to put it back on the number 1 position, so that's the softest setting. Also on our later model knobs has a flat spot on the top, so that at number 1 you can reach up and feel it, so you don't have to actually look at the numbers to figure out where it's at when you're making adjustments on the car. Our rebound knob, to install it, what we're going to do is remove it, remove our nuts, remove our washers. Now we're ready to do the assembly. The next thing I'm going to do is put our thrust bearings on. So I've already put some grease on the rollers, so we do want to grease them before we assemble them. And the thrust bearing is going to go between the spring seat and the spring. Then we can put our spring on. And what the thrust bearings do is it makes it a lot easier when you're adjusting the ride height to get started. On our spring, we've done a flat ground spring on the top. The original spring for the Camaro, there's a pocket in the top that has a little bit of a ramp and a little bit of an angle. And we did a flat ground spring, so it doesn't matter where this spring is, anywhere clocked in the upper pocket, it'll always be in the correct place and it'll always be even side to side. So I've put a little bit of additional copper-based anti-seize on my threads. So now I'm going to put it inside the car. We're going to align the upper post. We're going to put a nut on just to support it so that it'll now stay up by itself and we can hook it to the lower control arm. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my bolts in, and I like to put them on the T-bar from the top side down. And again, we always mount the T-bar on the top side of the lower control arm. I'm going to take my reinforcing plate and I'm going to put it on our T-bar. What I will do is now bring the lower control arm up, align my bolt holes, so we're going to take our upper bushing. There's a little nipple, and we want to make sure that nipple is in the frame and it's centered in the hole. We're going to take our gold washer. We're going to take our full nut. And when we tighten this down, we want to tighten it until the bushing just starts to bulge. And when the bushing just starts to bulge, we're going to take our jam nut, put it on top, tighten that down, and then on our rebound knob. So what we're going to do is we don't want to do anything with the Allen set screws here that holds the clicker in place. So what we're going to do is screw this back down. And what I like to do as a starting point is I go full firm, which is the tightest it can go. And once I reach that point, I go 10 clicks counterclockwise. And so that puts the rebound in the middle of its adjustment range. So all the way down, full, tight, clockwise will be the firmest position. Reduce it by 10 clicks is the midpoint of its travel. So that's a good place to start when we're doing our preliminary, go out, drive it, see how it feels, make adjustments from there. So now I've made my preliminary adjustment on my upper rebound knob, my lower compression knob. I just have to install the spindle, the brakes, put everything back together, get it on the ground, go out and drive it, see how it feels, how it reacts, and if we have to make any ride height adjustments, we'll make our ride height adjustments. So now that I've showed you all the mistakes that were made in the back of the car with shock choice, shock length, spring rate, and why this car was driving so poorly, in the front of the car, showed you the mistakes of putting the shocks on incorrectly, and the car's going to now drive a lot better. I think Sergio's going to be extremely happy with the 69 Camaro. For more information about this 67 to 69 Camaro and Firebird kit, check us out at aldanamerican.com.